It's funny, this room, it becomes smaller and smaller. Like even at my age, it's been probably 2 or 3 years since I came here last, and it's smaller than I remember it.
People often ask, why are there so many writers in Iceland? And it has something to do with, you know, how people tell stories, you know.
I think one of the reasons Icelandic literature has drawn attention in the past is because it gives out a sense of urgency. We have examples of just maybe one book tipping a very important scale for the national identity of Iceland. If certain authors wouldn't have written their works in the 20th century, we would have a totally different perception of ourselves. And I think that this weight and responsibility goes out in the work of people that are even writing today in Icelandic. This sense of urgency and that every book can make a difference.
Recently I heard for the first time that the Icelandic language actually helped us to get independency, because the Danes respected our language and how special it is and the story of the language. And that is of course linked to the Icelandic sagas.
We are often, in Iceland, we are often writing about like tiny villages, tiny quarters in cities or countryside, you know, and this small world is reflecting the big world.
You know, it's very difficult to generalize about Icelandic literature because it is now so varied. But there is one streak that I particularly love and cherish, and that is the streak of humor, all the way from the sagas, where the humor is extremely black and sadistic. And you know, we have this streak throughout Halldór, Laxness, Guðbergur Bergsson, our great authors, and I do hope that I, in my small way, have contributed to the humor of Icelandic literature.
I think, if I'm completely honest, that the biggest inspiration Iceland has given me is the trauma. Our history seeps into Icelandic literature. I mean, it's shaped us generation after generation. We love tragedies and dramas. And I think maybe it's like when you're a kid and you love ghost stories because you need a healthy outlet for the fear, because it's quite scary being a child. And so it was quite scary living on this pretty desolate island, you know, for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And so I think literature and culture gives us a healthy outlet for that fear.
What makes Icelandic literature thrive is that we have then had writers of every generation that have translated maybe the best and newest from abroad into Icelandic. So there is this constant kind of dialogue with world literature still based on the heritage of Icelandic literature. So I would say the essence of Iceland is storytelling and explaining things through stories.
We have this nation that's been living in a country that's basically unlivable. Before we had electricity and heat, but still people were here telling each other stories just to survive and make it through the dark winters. So I think that, or I'm hoping that we have some element of that still in our storytelling. That's, you know, that has this drive that we're telling a story to just make it through the difficulties of our lives.
The popularity of Iceland as like a tourist destination in the last decade or so has, I think it's probably helped Icelandic literature quite a lot. And I feel that when I meet readers, that people read about Iceland and and reading about Iceland makes them want to visit Iceland as well. So it works both ways, but I think, you know, getting all these tourists to Iceland and, you know, exploring our country is absolutely wonderful for anyone who is, you know, creating art in Iceland and looking for a bigger audience. And so I think we can be really thankful for the, you know, for the interest we have in Iceland and our culture.
Icelandic nature is dangerous. We are always afraid of volcano eruptions or earthquakes, and this danger, it has given us a lot of stories, and unfortunately some of them are true. This threat, this constant threat, is very inspirational. And we know that anything could happen, and we're always fighting against nature. But we know that in the end it's nature that rules, and we have nothing to say against it.
Icelandic literature can be so local that it becomes global. We tell so small stories often, and our point of view of looking at the world is the point of view of islanders, of a small nation, of a nation that doesn't have an army, doesn't have a war. We are pure in that way, we are innocent in that way. And that, I think, is something that only authors from other small nations can partake into. That unique perspective of seeing the world through the eyes of simplicity, I guess.